Welcome to the Be Bold podcast. I'm Beth Whitman. Hello once again from India. This week I'm recording from Varanasi, where I'm staying at a small hotel that overlooks the Ganges. This morning we awoke at 5 to walk down to the river, hop on a boat, and meander up and down as the sun came up. To the east, we had the sun, and to the west, local pilgrims and residents bathed in the river, brushed their teeth, and washed their clothes. And while all that's happening, just upriver, the cremation ghats were burning. This is where people are cremated, just out in the open on the riverfront. And this happens 24 hours a day. Last night, we saw probably a dozen funeral pyres, and today we saw the remnants of those while more were burning. This is the last full day of our 15-day tour that took us from Delhi to Jodhpur, Udaipur, Jaipur, Agra, where the Taj Mahal is located, and finally to Varanasi, the holiest of cities in India. I've been posting lots of photos from the trip on my personal Facebook page, and we'll start uploading to Instagram soon. So if we're not already friends or you're not following me, be sure to connect with me so you can follow along. Of course, you could have your own India experience and join a future wander tour to India. I'm working on dates for the fall of 2018 for North India and am considering a South India tour in 2019. You'll be able to find those on wandertours.com, and if you sign up for my monthly newsletter, you'll get an early alert for when those tours are announced. Okay. So now on to today's episode of the Be Bold podcast. This podcast is where I feature conversations with women who share their inspirational stories. Some women you may already know of, while others will be new to you. These are women exceeding in their fields as entrepreneurs, travelers, adventurers, musicians, athletes, philanthropists, chefs, and more. The thread that binds them together is that they are forging their own path to success and providing inspiration to other women in the process. Today's guest is Ashley Fullenwider. I was introduced to Ashley by a mutual friend of ours and initially only knew her as the co-founder of Nuu Muu, the makers of exercise apparel for women. What I discovered is that once you start to pull back the covers, there are layers not only to Nuu Muu but also to Ashley. If you know what a muumuu is, you know those blousey dresses, you can imagine a Nuu Muu. It's a much more stylish version of a dress for women of all sizes. While Nuu Muu was started to satisfy the founder's desire to wear something stylish while exercising, the dresses are appropriate for everyday wear and, more importantly to me, travel. So that's Nuu Muu. Now, Ashley. When I started researching about Ashley prior to recording this episode, I found out there's much more to her world than being a co-founder of Nuu Muu. What consumes much of her time is her job at Argonne National Laboratories, where she's a political scientist and linguist and travels extensively to work against the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Pretty crazy, huh? On the side, she's a national collegiate champion of ultimate Frisbee and is on the board of Bellingham Youth Ultimate, where she gets to coach young people in ultimate Frisbee. In this episode, we talk about how she not only manages to juggle these very different aspects of her world, but how she thrives in these environments. These worlds that, on one hand, includes a very stressful job with a lot on the line, with one that is far more creative. But to Ashley, these are both equally important. I think what's so important about this conversation is that most women are juggling many different aspects of their lives. Some do it better than others, and I'd have to say that by all appearances, Ashley's doing it pretty well. She seems quite grounded given all that she has on her plate, and I think she's pretty amazing for that alone. By the way, she also shares her secret to getting over jet lag in this episode, and given all the travel she does, that must be part of her secret sauce to success. Before we jump into this episode, a reminder that if you like what you hear, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play and leave a review. And that literally takes just a couple of minutes. Those reviews tell your podcast provider to deliver up the podcast more often, and it also helps people know a bit more about what they're about to listen to or subscribe to. I also ask that you please introduce someone to the podcast whom you think might get something out of it. There are always some really wonderful gems in every conversation, and I'd love to get the word out to more people. And with that, enjoy this conversation with Ashley Fullenwider. What kind of food did you have?
I had watermelon and pineapple and some decaf coffee.
Are you a fruitarian?
No.
Okay.
No, I had some potatoes.
Okay.
With dairy products in them.
Okay.
Whatever it was.
Watermelon is my favorite food. I love it.
Yeah.
Every time I go to Asia, watermelon juice, that's my big thing. I've got to have as much watermelon juice.
Yeah. Do they sell that here for you?
No, not like they do there. I mean, if here, there's a place down in the market and it's like $7.
Yeah, right.
If I go to Bangkok, it's like 75 cents.
Yeah, right.
So I can sit and drink watermelon juice all day till I'm sick. And I do. And pad thai. I know this little place on the corner. That's where I have it. So it's all good. So Ashley, thanks so much for coming. I got connected with you through a common Nuu Muu friend, a friend of Nuu Muu.
Yeah.
So I want to hear about that and what your role is there. But you have a lot more going on that is really fascinating to me, especially from the travel perspective and the international perspective. And I want to make sure we cover that as well. So first, maybe if you could talk about your role with Nuu Muu, which is located up in Bellingham. It's a couple of hours north of Seattle. And then we'll talk about the other good stuff too.
Sounds great. I am one of the owners of Nuu Muu. It was created in 2008, and my business partner, Christine, and I sort of created something that we loved that's just sort of taken off.
What's a Nuu Muu?
A Nuu Muu is an exercise dress. Yeah, it's a frock.
A frock. Uh-huh.
It's a frock or a tunic with a pocket.
But it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, I would say for everybody, it's probably a little more than that, but in very different ways. So some people use them for, running their very first mile, or recovering after some kind of moment in their lives where they need to run that first mile. And it's really important to them. And it's sort of it's a companion piece for that. And other people run hundreds of miles in their Nuu Muus and are doing their 50th half marathon or their century ride or their charity ride for whatever cause, strikes their heart. Or some people come up to us and say, I never wear these for exercise. I don't know why you market them as exercise dresses. I only wear mine to work.
They're just adorable.
Yeah. So they do a lot of things for a lot of people.
Yeah. I saw a photo on your website of a woman next to a bike with a pair of leggings and her Nuu Muu. And I thought she looks so cute. Like it was just such a cute photo. And it's like, I'm in the market for a bicycle. So we can talk about that too, because you're a biker, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in the market for a bike. And I thought, yeah, I could wear a Nuu Muu on a bike. It's perfect.
They were born on a bike. So Christine and I used to, Christine, we need to do more touring, tour together. Mm-hmm. And I think we took our first bike ride in 98. And we wore dime store dresses, just sort of like crappy thrift store dresses that we had that we would throw on over our jog bras and our cycling shorts or whatever we were wearing that day. And we would end up places and people would just be like, you girls are so cute. I can't believe you rode your bike 50 miles today. I can't believe you rode your bike 100 miles. Look at you girls. Are you sure you don't want to ride? Why are you riding your bike so far? And it was just a really easy transition. You go out to dinner and you feel put together.
Right.
And so the new incarnation of this dress, the new Nuu Muu, is very functional and transitional. So you can, some people, whatever, they do their thing and then they need to go out and have a cup of coffee, or they need to go have a glass of wine or go out to dinner, or they're going to their Zumba class and then they got to go pick up the kids and then they got to go to the grocery store, and you can just do it all in some people wear them to work and then they go on their run on their way home. And it's a super easy transition to a functional exercise piece that feels easy to wear.
And so we should clarify too that the spelling is Nuuu, Muu. So N as in Nancy, M as in Mary. So Nuu Muu.
And with a hyphen in the middle.
Because
if we had to do it all over again, we would probably make that hyphen go away. But there it is. So,
but it's there.
Yep.
The idea behind Nuu Muu is it's a new Moo Moo.
Correct.
Okay, I'm so smart. Figured it out. Yeah.
Furthermore, I can even tell you the ones that we call Roo Moos are the ones with the pocket in the back, and that's a Roo.
Like a kangaroo.
Correct. Spelled R-U-U.
And your position there is choreographer.
That's what I have on my business card. Yes.
What does that mean?
That means I help people make sure they're going in the right direction. I think, or doing the dance that we want them to do
within the company.
Within the company.
How big is the company?
We have 8 people working for us.
And they're all in Bellingham?
We've got 2 in Idaho. Yeah. So Christine is in Idaho, and our sales manager, Molly Linnett, is in Idaho.
So the founder's in Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is created in the U.S.
Correct.
Where's your manufacturing facility?
Dresses are sewn in Los Angeles. Yeah. And our fabric, some of our fabric for our shirts is made in LA as well. So we're actually making the fabric there. And then some of the fabric for the dresses comes from Asia.
So the company founded, you said, in 2008?
Yeah.
And how long, I'm really fascinated with this process. And I talked to Sally Burgesson from Oiselle about this too, because I'm really fascinated because I know nothing about it. And I just think, yeah, it's one thing to say, yeah, I'm out on my bike and everyone's commenting on this cute thrift store dress that I'm wearing. Yeah. The leap from there to actually manufacturing something. What happens in that time frame from idea to having a manufacturing place in Los Angeles where people are actually sewing the dresses? How do you figure all that out?
I think you have to be really curious. And I want to say stick to itness. You have to have some
grit,
gumption,
right?
Grit.
Yeah, grit's the big word now.
Right. Okay. So grit and curiosity. And you're okay, how does that work? Okay, how does that work? And why doesn't this work? Or what happened here? Or tell me again, or show me a video, or I need to learn more about this. I think that has been the key to figuring out how to manufacture a dress. And it's a very simple garment. And usually when we talk to the people who are, our suppliers or working with us, our co-creators, they say, oh yeah, it's very straightforward. And we're you have no idea how many ways there are to screw up making this dress. Because
they tell you that.
Oh, I can tell them that.
Oh,
when they tell me that it's easy, I say you'd be surprised.
Oh, I see. Because you've seen it happen.
Because we've seen all kinds of things happen. All kinds of things happen.
What?
Well, if any of our current customers are listening to this, they will know that we had a crop of dresses come in spring 2017 that were about an inch shorter than any other dresses that we had made, and we hadn't made any changes to our pattern with the length.
It's the curiosity. Are you the curious person?
No, I think all of us are really curious. Our designer, it used to be in the beginning that we had a print library that we could choose prints from. Well, I guess if you wanted the whole story is, I think in the very beginning, Christine went to a remnant fabric shop and was this is pretty and that's pretty and I like this one and this one, but there were only 40 yards of this and 60 yards of that. And so the very first round of dresses, that's how we did it. I think we ended up with some remnant Patagonia bathing suit fabric that we turned into the very first Nuu Muus, which were very popular. So they had good taste in fabric. Yeah. And then we found print libraries where we would go and look at different prints online and be okay, we can pick this and this and this. But that's relying on someone else to create that for you. And then the evolution was, our designer's okay, well, how do we change the colors? Okay, so we have a flower and it has 4 colors. Can we change them? And so we figured out how to do that. And now we're at the place where we have all Nuu Muu owned custom designs that are done by our designer, Enid Wilson. And so she will paint something and actually paint it and then figure out how to digitize it. And then we can change anything that we want. And then no one else can use that fabric for anything else. So I think all of us, and I could probably tell the same story with Christine and figuring out our website. There have been many iterations and it's just okay, how can we make it work better? Okay, here's what we're hearing from our customers. Okay, here's what we're dealing with on the back end. How can we make this better for all of us? And so it's curiosity and willingness to put in the work to actually.
It sounds intimidating. You don't find it intimidating?
I am coming up against this question right now because there are a lot of other women entrepreneurs who are I'm having conversations with them now and they're oh, well, I'm going to go do this. And it sounds so easy. And I don't want to be discouraging of you have no idea how much work it takes to start a business. Because I guess the saying goes, if you knew, you would never do it.
Exactly.
So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So, and that's why I guess choreographer is sort of appropriate because I provide strategic leadership, for our team, and I help tease that out of like, what do we want right now, and what is interesting to us as a group, and is that interesting to our customers, and how do we find a sweet spot there? But really, you have to have a team. Like, I see people struggling because they're making widgets in their backyard, and they're like, I'm never going to get out of being able to do this. Like, I'm sewing everything myself. And I'm like, so that's
the problem.
That's a problem. Yeah.
The reason I ask about the intimidating factor, and I totally get you on kind of people saying, oh, I'm going to go do this, because I see, like, especially in my tour business, because I have a company called Wander Tours, which many listeners will know about. And I've been leading tours for almost 10 years. And so I have a pretty high success rate. Like, my tours sell out relatively quickly. And I see other women specifically who come in and start tour companies. And some of them say something to me like, can I get your help? But other ones, they just do their own thing. And at first I was like, oh, crap. Now they're leading tours too. She's leading tours. And then I think, you know what? For one, good luck with that, because it's hard. It's really hard to run a tour business.
Yeah.
And the other thing, there's room for everybody.
Yeah.
There's plenty of room. It's like the rising tides.
Right.
It's totally fine. But there is that, I have people still. I just got an email recently from someone who said, hey, I've been thinking about leading tours, and I see what you do. And, do you have time to kind of help me walk through it? And I just don't have time to respond to all those lovely people. But also, I think, I don't know that you want to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go for your run before it gets dark out, so you can jump on, your laptop and spend the day working or writing or answering emails or developing tours. It's really difficult. It's really time consuming. And I can only imagine it's very similar to you, what you're doing. It's like you said, if you knew what you were getting into beforehand, you'd be like, oh no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go back to my work, go back to my job.
And luckily, and maybe this is sort of in contrast to where you are with your business and what you offer, like, I'm very lucky because we have a team, and I'm really good at delegating. So when we have hard things come up, or we need to figure something out, I don't have to do all of it myself. I almost never do anything myself.
Well, that's good. When you teach a delegating class, can you sign me up for that?
I'm super good at it. Yeah.
How did you learn how to delegate?
There's nothing like being totally overwhelmed and caring about the end product. And
how do you know when you're overwhelmed, though?
Well, you just can't get to all the things that you need to do in the day.
I can never get to all the things I need to.
I guess for me, if there are things that I can delegate, then I want to delegate. I think that's sort of where I'm at. Like, if I can delegate it, then I'm not going to do it myself.
Yeah.
Especially in my Nuu Muu world. Like, there's, and I think that that's true because I love the people that I work with, and they're really good at their jobs, and I know that they can handle it. And if they can't handle it, they're going to tell me, or they're going to figure out how to get whatever it is that we need to get done, or we'll resolve it. But I don't have to do that problem solving. I can give it to them to do. And so trusting in that process has served me well. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I've got great people working for Nuu Muu. So we have a good team.
So you not only are a choreographer at Nuu Muu, but you have another position that you hold. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I work for Argonne National Laboratory, which is part of the Department of Energy and our national laboratory system here in the U.S. And I work on non-proliferation for a particular part of the lab. So we do trainings. Mostly we do international trainings on non-proliferation.
So break that down exactly what that means, because you were kind enough to send me a couple of links to things that you've done. So I have some background knowledge on it, but I bet a lot of people don't understand completely what that means. So can you talk about non-proliferation and then the kind of work that you do?
Yeah. So this gets really bureaucratic and technical pretty quickly. So bear with me. I'll try to make this as short and sweet as possible. So I work in an area that's called export controls, and there are international laws. So if you're a country that's part of the United Nations, then there are sort of international conventions and regimes that sort of spell out what we're allowed to trade with and without a license. And so things that can contribute to a weapon of mass destruction require a license. In many cases, of course, it's slightly more complicated than that, but essentially it's called export controls. And the goal of export controls is to prevent the spread of weapons of mass destruction, especially from supplier countries like the United States, where we have a lot of that technology. And we want to make sure that when it leaves the United States, that we know where it's going.
So that it's not being used for those purposes.
Correct.
That it's being used in the correct way.
For peaceful purposes. You can think of a nuclear reactor for a civilian nuclear reactor. Like, that's completely legitimate trade. It provides energy to the world. That's great. That same technology and items could also be used to produce items for a dirty bomb, which is not so great. So people care.
So are they actually tracking that item or that product? So maybe that there's not 100,000 units being shipped off to a country, but there might be a couple of units that are being shipped off, and then you can kind of track what the end use is for
That's
it.
correct.
Is that more like it? Okay,
yep.
Got it.
So it's not that things can't be traded, they just need to be licensed in most cases. And sometimes they can't. Sometimes a license would be denied, but most of the time licenses are approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one part of your job. And the other part, you are traveling quite a bit with Argonne, and you're traveling to Georgia and Ukraine still?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to travel all over the world with Argonne, for which I'm very grateful. Doing the same work for export control. So we take a training team over to wherever it is that we're going at the invitation of the host country, and work with our counterparts to try to strengthen export control, so to raise the level of knowledge of the commodities and what we're working with. And technical expertise that goes along with that. So I am the political scientist in the group, and a linguist, and so I manage teams and put together the strategy for a particular country. And then if I need my engineers, which I usually do, I bring them in, either U.S. counterparts from other national laboratories, or sometimes we invite international experts to join our teams.
And how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that since 2001.
Long time.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's go back and find out how you got there.
Yeah.
You grew up in California.
I did.
And in the Central Valley, is that right?
Yeah, Central, and then, moved around Santa Cruz and Berkeley and Davis and Merced. And then I spent, we didn't talk about this before, I spent 7 formative, lovely years in Wisconsin during high school, during junior high and high school.
Oh, so you actually were in high school in Wisconsin for high school.
Yep.
So your early years were California. Family moved to Wisconsin.
And then we all moved back to California. So there
was a split in there, and then you went back.
Yep.
What did you think of California when you went back? Like having been away from it for 7 years during your high school years, and then you go back to California.
So the story that I tell about that, which I'll just say I love California, and I'm a proud Californian, and I graduated from high school in Santa Cruz. But the thing that was truly profoundly different was the culture around school. And in the Midwest, everybody was part of the band or the football team, or you're a cheerleader, you're a color guard, or you play on this and that. And there were after school activities, and the parents went, and the teachers were very involved. And like, school was just a really big deal. It was a community project, and you felt the importance of it, and you felt the respect for it, and sort of a requirement to do your best. And when I moved to California, I was shocked because school wasn't cool. I guess that's sort of what it boils down to. Like in Wisconsin, school was very cool and you needed to do a good job. When you moved to California, school was not cool.
Was it just your senior year that you were back there?
Yeah. But it was definitely sort of the culture. It was like people didn't join all the sports, and there wasn't like the same community around school. So I found that incredibly shocking.
How did you deal with it? As a senior, that's really difficult to be torn away from your friends.
It was a nightmare. Yeah. So I dealt with it. Actually, good question. So I would say the teachers in Santa Cruz were outstanding. So I made much closer relationships with my teachers because I was a motivated student. And the other thing that I did was finish 2 years of high school in 1 year because my academics were strong enough from moving, and the standards were lower in California than they were in Wisconsin. So I was in the accelerated program. So when I moved to California, I was able to finish very quickly, and I did
So you
French
actually moved as a junior.
I guess I moved as a junior, yeah.
And then just finished up and got out of there.
Yeah, but I took classes at the community college, and I took great classes like in Indonesian dance, which, and Mexican folk dance, and I had to take extra art.
That's why you're the choreographer.
It's so true, because I had to take modern dance at the community college in order to satisfy PE requirements, because I had the academics taken care of. I had to take an art class at the community college, and but it was great. And I did French and Spanish, and then I finished up as quickly as I could, and I moved to the Soviet Union.
Wow. After high school or after
high school. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure what to say to that. Did you go to college?
I did after I came back. Yeah.
How long were you in Russia?
A gap year. Yes.
Oh, you took a gap year.
Yeah. I mean, I finished early, so I sort of, because I finished early, I felt like I ended up just taking that year to go do something.
It was your parents that precipitated the move back and forth to Wisconsin. Was that a job?
Medical school.
Medical school?
Yeah.
Do you have siblings?
I do.
How many?
3.
So where are you in that order?
I'm 2. I'm second oldest.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so your mom or your dad picked up?
Yeah, my mom. And it was actually my stepfather who was in med school. So we moved to Wisconsin so that he could do school. My 2 brothers were born there. And then we all moved back. Yeah.
Very big deal.
Yeah.
And
it was good.
Did they notice the difference in the schools? Like, were they involved enough to kind of recognize that there was an issue when you moved back and that you needed to kind of be scooted along quickly?
Well, right. In addition to changing states in the middle of high school, I also moved to live with my father, who had been located in Santa Cruz, because I had a history there and I didn't want to move to a new town, which would have been Redding, California. And I knew some people in Santa Cruz. So
between Santa Cruz and Redding.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So you can understand that.
Nothing wrong with Redding, but
Yeah, I thought it was an easy choice, but I was also a very independent person, and I think I've always been my mother calls me the let's go kid, right? Because I'm always like, let's go do something. So I finished up quickly because I could, and I wanted to be done, and I wanted to go do something else. So my father was really supportive and he just sort of helped me do that gap year and paid what needed to be paid so that I could do this year abroad. And I arrived in the Soviet Union, and then about 2 months after we were there, it collapsed and turned into Russia. And
why did you go to the Soviet Union in the first place?
Oh, because it sounded fascinating. Yeah.
And when you said did your dad go with you? Or
No.
you were you mean?
Part of the AFS program is probably what I was referring to. Yeah, because there were a group of students. I think we had like 50 students that went over and then got dispersed throughout 11 time zones or whatever it is. Yeah.
Just the other day, I spoke with Rita Golden-Gelman for the podcast. Oh. She's the author of Tales of a Female Nomad.
Yeah, she's got that book.
Yeah, she's got such a huge following. Yeah. But her big thing now is to get gap year in every high school in the U.S.
Oh.
Like, she wants to develop this scholarship program so that there's at least one student from every high school that gets the scholarship for a gap year, and to get them moving, whether she's using gap year because that's a common term, but whether it's a couple of months or a month, just to get kids out and traveling more. So you were very familiar with it sounds like, or you are at least very familiar with that term and the importance of it.
Yeah, I mean, it set the tone of my life/career from that moment forward, because I do have Russian language skills, which were very valuable when I returned. So it was as Russia and the Soviet Union broke up and all of that was going on, there was a lot of need for Russian language.
Did you know Russian before you left? Were you studying?
Not a word. Or I should say I knew how to count to 10 in the days of the week.
And yet?
That's what I learned, yeah.
So you left for Russia, spent a year there, and then what were you doing? Were you traveling around? Or
No, I was living in the middle of absolutely nowhere. I was in a very small town called Kislovodsk, which is in the Caucasus Mountains. And I got sent to live with a family, and it was an exchange program at that time. So their daughter came to the United States, and I went there. And, there's like those little boxes in life where you check. And one of those little boxes was, do you want to live in a small town or do you want to live in a big town? And I clicked small town because I thought that might be a good idea. And it was an astounding experience.
Were you going to school?
I was. I started out at like the local community college type polytechnic school, and then And then I transferred to a school that was closer to home and ended up actually going to school with the first graders as a 17-year-old because they were learning to read and write Russian, which is what I needed. And so it was actually like the younger kids were super fun and they were really helpful. And the older kids were a little bit like not sure what to do with me.
Mm-hmm. So you got to learn the basics from a first grade level.
Yeah, and thank goodness, because Russian is a nightmare. If you ever try to learn it from a book, like forget about it. I mean, at least I'm not focused enough or applied enough or technical enough to really absorb it from a book because the grammar is pretty complex. But my hearing, like just learning it on the street, so I speak it as a heritage speaker. So don't ask me to write anything.
So you came back after your year, and then you went to college?
Yeah. That's a funny story too. I was supposed to go to World College West, which is a really small liberal arts college in Petaluma, California. It had an international focus, and I had applied and gotten in and then had deferred for a year so that I could go do my adventure and come back and go to school. During the year that I was gone, they closed because they lost a giant grant from the state of California. And so I came back, and I was, at the time, I'm like a recovering type A personality. So at the time, my dad didn't even want to tell me because there was nothing I could do about it. And correspondence was so slow between, like it took, 4 months for letters to arrive and things like that.
What year was that?
In 91 when I was over there. So yeah, the days before email and
yeah, sure.
Yeah, practically before the postal service. So I came back and he was like, surprise, sorry, you have no place to go to school, which was really wild at the time because I was very planner kind of person. But what ended up happening is I went to the University of California, which is the town where, I grew up in. And of course, UCSC was not cool if you're a townie. Like it was the school where all the pot smokers went, all the slackers, and like if you weren't a serious students didn't go to Santa Cruz. At least that was my very biased opinion as a kid. And so I went up there and I just sort of begged to be let in, and on the merits of my grades and my experience, they were like, okay. And I had every intention of transferring out as soon as possible. Like at least I could start school and something would happen and then I'd leave because God forbid I should go to UCSC. And then my first week of orientation, I started playing ultimate Frisbee on this beautiful field that looked out over the ocean. And turns out that sort of the same experience with high school is that those professors that were up there were just amazing. They were amazing human beings, and they had a strong Russian language program at the time. And I was super happy there. So I didn't go anywhere.
And so you stayed and you played Frisbee?
I did stay and I played I pretty much majored in ultimate Frisbee.
But you passed your grades, and do you have a poli-sci degree?
I do.
Okay.
Political science and Russian studies.
Okay. So you did a couple of other things other than Frisbee.
Yeah. Well, I made myself go away. So I did school in Finland for a year and studied in Russian at the University of Helsinki.
Wow.
And did a Russian studies program there. So that helped.
Okay. Yeah. I would imagine big time.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to get back to something because you brought it up a couple of times, how great the teachers were in the schools that you're talking about in California, yet the standards are much lower. What do you attribute? And I know nothing about the school system. I don't have kids, so like, what do I know? But it just strikes me as odd that you're saying that the teachers are so great, yet the standards are low and the kids just don't have that same kind of pride about going to school. What do you attribute that to?
I have no idea. I don't know if I have a pithy good answer for that. I feel like at the university, there's a culture of excellence in the academics of the university that I think is super strong. And I think that that's true throughout the University of California. And I think that, because it's Santa Cruz, I don't know, they get to pick whoever, there's probably a lot of qualified human beings who want to be there because it is such a great spot. So I think they get to do a good job of picking the cream of the crop. But I also think that it's just, I don't know, by the time you get to be a professor, it feels like you've jumped through a whole lot of hoops to get there and to educate yourself and to be part of that learning community and to do a good job at teaching and care and be passionate about it and learn how to offer that to students who are interested. And I think that that's probably also true at the high school level. All the teachers that I had were so passionate.
Do you think that was you just seeking them out? Like you being kind of a standout student because of where you came from, and then you made these connections with the really good ones,
Sure.
The really strong ones?
Yeah, part of it is me being me. But it's also great. It's great to to have people to lift you up, right? And to educate you and to
for
care.
Sure. Yeah, nothing.
And to care.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, nothing wrong with that at all. It just a question in my mind because I thought it was so interesting, kind of the difference between.
I'm sure there were other great students too.
Yeah, maybe one or two. The ultimate Frisbee, there's not a big career path for that, is there?
There is now. People actually get paid to play ultimate Frisbee in this day and age, which is just shocking. And my little brother played, I think like 15 years after I did. He sort of went through the same UC Santa Cruz experience.
Is it like a collegiate sport?
It is a collegiate sport.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Not in New Jersey where I'm from. So I think I missed out on that.
So I coached when I did graduate school. I coached the team at my graduate school.
And where was that?
At Columbia.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So they have it. And we traveled. We went to other East Coast schools and played tournaments there. And we played, when we lived overseas, we played in tournaments overseas as well. Like when I lived in Finland, that was the only thing I learned to do in Finnish because everybody else wanted to speak English to me and show me how much better their English was than my Finnish. So I ended up speaking a lot of English on the streets with people, but in the heat of the moment, they actually were speaking Finnish at me. And so I learned to play ultimate Frisbee in Finnish.
So what's kind of the pinnacle of your Frisbee career?
I would say two moments stand out. So I got to, like, long story short, I got to catch the winning goal in our national championship game for UC Santa Cruz, the Slug. So that was super awesome. After beating Santa Barbara, I just have to say it out loud, after they had beat us all year. So we beat them in the national championships and we played in Louisiana. So that was awesome. And then I have a huge space in my heart for my team in Bellingham, Washington, which is the reason.
Are you still playing now?
No, now I am on the board of Bellingham Youth Ultimate, so that I get to play Ultimate with like third graders, which is exactly where I want to be playing right now. But I played for 10 years in Washington, and they have a very, very strong Ultimate around here. I actually played in Seattle for a while. But we had a team in Bellingham that was just so much more than like the sum of our parts was just huge, and individually we didn't have any like superstar, but all together we were just amazing and we had such a good time. And so they're still my closest friends and community up in Bellingham.
I think I could ask you more questions about non-proliferation than I could Frisbee because I know, you know what I mean? Like I'm just like listening to you and I'm like, I have no concept, like I can throw a Frisbee pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, I think I even have one in my closet. I can throw a Frisbee well, but I just like have no concept of like, I didn't know there was this whole world out there.
Oh yeah. You want a quick tutorial? It can be real quick. So like, it's just like American football where the two teams line up against each other on a football field or a soccer field, and one team throws the Frisbee as far as they can to the other one, just like a kickoff, and you have to catch it, and then you throw it from person to person and try to catch it anywhere in the goal, sort of like American football. But it's non-contact. And it can be the teams that I had the most fun on were co-ed.
So you're intercepting.
Yeah, you can intercept.
Using your feet and your hands and whatever you can just to kick it out of the way.
And if I'm trying to throw it to you and somebody's trying to defend you, so you have to, and if you don't catch it, then it's a turnover. So we have to throw it to each other, and you can't run, right? You can't run with a Frisbee.
Oh,
no running with a Frisbee.
See, I was imagining running. Okay.
Yeah. You can run. It's sort of like
you can't run when you have it in your hand.
Have it, but otherwise you can run, right? So if I throw it to you, and then you just wait, and I'm going to run all the way into the end zone, then you can throw it to me.
That actually sounds like fun.
It's super fun.
It sounds like good exercise too.
It's a lot of running.
Yeah,
it's
like soccer. Kind of sounds.
Yeah.
Reminds me of soccer, but
it was a really great 13 years of my life.
Now you're doing more bike touring.
Yeah.
Is that right? What kind of bike do you have?
Oh.
Now that I'm like looking for a bike, I go on my runs and I look at what other people are riding around. I'd never done that before. So what do you have?
I have a Bianchi, and I bought my Bianchi in 1996.
Wow.
And it just
treating you well.
Yeah, it just got replaced a few months ago.
Aw.
So now I have a Kona, which isn't quite tricked out the way it needs to be tricked out. But I will say the first time I did a long distance tour, I rode my bike across the country on a crappy mountain bike with mountain bike tires on it because I had no idea what I was doing, and I just thought it might be a good idea and figured that the bike would get me there.
You went and it did.
And it did.
You went from where to where?
Boston to Stanford.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Palo Alto. Yeah.
How long did that take you?
Like 10 weeks.
And did you go by yourself?
No, I went with a boyfriend at the time.
And you two just decided, hey, let's go across country on our bikes. We've got some time.
Yeah, which was really crazy because I had never even done an overnight on my bike before, and I didn't even know how to change a tire.
You know what? Sometimes you just got to do it, because if you ask too many questions, if you give it too much thought, you don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how powerful that is, right? Like now, I don't know if it's just as you get older. I'm sure kids are doing the same thing. Like they're just like, yeah, I'm going to do this thing. And who cares if I don't know how to do it? I'm just going to do it. And it works out. Like usually it works out. But I did. And we didn't have a tent. It didn't have a stove.
Did you buy one along the way? Did you figure out you needed it? You just didn't have it. Were you staying in youth hostels or something?
No, we just camped in barns and on church. Like we had a tarp. And so churches were really like, we'd be gone by 5 o'clock in the morning because we were young and dumb and we thought we had to bike 100 miles a day or whatever it was on our crappy mountain bike. So that took a while. But yeah, we would just...
How old were you?
I was 21.
Did you get along with him the whole time? Or were you like at each other? Because I thought you were going to bring the tent. No, I thought you were going to bring the tent.
No. It was pure adventure. So it was fun.
Those were the good old days, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, life is good now, but I do know that feeling of like the ignorance of doing something. Yeah.
Right. Because you're pretty sure. But I still think sometimes the same mentality prevails, though. Like even now, we just had, so last summer, we did a mini, what we call our family bike tours now, where we try to build in a week during the summer where we, like me and my siblings and associated spouses and partners and whoever else wants to come, parents and grandparents, do a trip together because we just have really enjoyed that. But last year after my brother's wedding, we biked back to Bellingham. And so, and he and his...
Was that their honeymoon?
It was their honeymoon.
Oh, it was.
So they came with, just because it was so much fun. But we had, and the oldest person in the group was 80 and the youngest person was 21.
No kidding.
And we just had and there were 10 of us. And we had one car. We had a support just in case we needed it. And we were going over Washington Pass. We went over Highway 20. And so...
You had tents?
Yes.
Okay,
we had
good.
Tents. We had sleeping bags. Yeah.
You're grown up now.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I had cushy, and a car to, carry the San Pellegrino or the beer or whatever
course.
It was. Yeah.
Hey, speaking of cushy, I saw this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but I think you can appreciate this. I go to Outdoor Retailer Show every year in Salt Lake City, now in Denver, starting January. Yeah. At this most recent one, they had this company, and I'll have to look up the name and I'll put it in the show notes, but there was a company that actually creates these tents that have this huge padding on the bottom that you blow up the mattress. And so it's an all-in-one thing where rather than having the air mattress separate that you're carrying around, it's all in one piece and you just blow it up. You've seen those before?
I haven't seen them before.
Oh, it was just amazing. I think it was where was this company from? It might have been a European country that was creating these. And it was just so cool. And then they also had sleeping bags kind of with that same thing where it was this big puffy air mattress was in there. Yeah. And then you just pump it up and it's like, that is amazing. Loved that.
I sort of have a love-hate relationship with gear because I don't like fussing with things and I don't like shopping and I don't usually rely on the gear to make my experience better. And at the same time, there's really great stuff out there now and I'm getting older and being comfortable is a little bit more of a priority. And so I do appreciate it. But there's also I think that's one of the reasons why Nuu Muu is good because it's so simple.
Yeah.
It's so simple and it's so functional. You don't have to you just throw it in the sink or just wear it in the shower and it's ready to go the next day.
Well, that's actually a good transition back to Nuu Muu. And now that everyone has heard your 2 lives that you're living, how is that kind of living completely different? Like you're a political scientist on one end, having to really burn the brain cells, in terms of language and the work that you're doing, and really kind of performing or really interacting with people at a very high, important, really critical level. And not that what you're doing with Nuu Muu isn't some of those things as well, but it's much more of a fun, creative aspect with a business side to it for sure. But how do you separate those out, and then how do you kind of integrate that as a person?
I would say that the thing that really brings them together for me now in my life is just understanding how to create the most honest conversations that I can have with the stakeholders on whatever project it is that I'm working on. So like not being afraid of hard conversations in both worlds, not being afraid of trying to inspire people in both worlds. And I don't see the work that I do for Argonne is not any more or less important than the work that I do for Nuu Muu, just because I care about the people that I'm working with and the people who like, the ultimate beneficiaries of the work, whether or not it's the stakeholder non-proliferation government agencies and the individuals that I've worked with for like 15 years now, or customers. Like we care a lot about our customers. And so I think like the thing that binds them together for me is the quality of those relationships and the value that I can bring to both places. And like, what is it like at my best, highest self? What am I bringing to Argonne and what am I bringing to Nuu Muu? And that feels very non-fragmented and very clear that I want to figure out how to create the structures for excellence and success, like in both areas.
How do you get clarity around that? Like, how do you find your clarity? If you're really clear about both of those positions and kind of how you're working with people, yes, that might come naturally, but do you take time to meditate? Do you journal? Do you like really have to kind of go inward and spend that time on your own to kind of manifest the clarity?
I was speaking about this just this morning when I was at that regenerative business summit that I went to. I'm talking about how to thrive in sort of a very dynamic system, right? What happens when everything is changing and everybody is co-creating at the same time? I use my yoga practice as probably the most centering, important, reflective time for myself where I can just do some listening, right? Like deep listening about what do I care about at the moment and what are my priorities and what do I need? What do I need to show up as my best self in both worlds. Do
you go to a structured class or do you practice at home?
I do. I go to two places in Bellingham. One is 3 Ohms, which is a studio that we have that's a glorious, beautiful place. And there's all different kinds of yoga there. So if you need a power class, you can do power. If you need gentle, you can do gentle. You can, there's something for everyone there and they do an amazing job. So I'm very, very grateful to have that in my home court. It's a huge resource for our community. And I've done yoga all around the world at this point. I just took my first yoga class in Armenian this year, which was awesome. And I don't speak Armenian.
I can only imagine.
It was great. And then I also take a Kundalini class at Inspire Studio because I do like Kundalini practice as well. But I find that helps me. And I also get a lot of energy from talking to my team one-on-one, like the people that I work with, of like just connecting with them and checking in and like what's working for you and what's not, and talk about pain points, like what's the, what needs to shift in order for life to be easier for all of us. And I like that work.
How often are you taking the yoga classes?
Well, I travel a lot and my home practice is horrible. So I take class 4 or 5 times a week.
Okay, that's quite a bit.
When life is good.
When you practice at home, do you mean that you're not good at home without a teacher, or you're not motivated, so you let it slide?
I think I have other priorities, like when I'm on the road, right? And you have to travel to wherever we're going for 4 days, and you can decide to sleep or exercise or sleep or prepare for the talk that you need to give or meet with your team and make sure everybody's like being taken, like that everybody has what they need when we walk on stage and do what it is that we need to do.
Are there any apps that you've tried using, like to be on the road and motivate yourself to do yoga?
I had a podcast that I was using that unfortunately got left on an airplane in the little tiny iPods back in the day when iPods were absolutely tiny, and I don't even remember who the woman was, but it was like an hour long thing. So I know it's possible.
Yeah.
But I also feel like I've done enough yoga in my life that when I need to call on my my centeredness or my yoga practice. I don't actually need to do the yoga in order to keep that spirit present in my day-to-day interactions with the world. So sometimes I just decide that sleep is actually more important.
Yeah, I understand that, especially if you're jet lagged too.
Yeah, right.
Do you have ways to get over jet lag?
I do. I don't know, because I have traveled so much, and so I think your body gets used to it. But I also think that the main driver of jet lag is stress, and I just always encourage people to imagine everything turning out fine, like, because travel requires, it's just so much unknown, and people want to control situations, and you can't control travel, and so you just have to go with it. And if you can let your body relax, I feel like it just makes life easier. And I also don't encourage the use of stimulants, either, sugar or caffeine or alcohol. I feel like those all sort of interfere with the body's natural homeostasis. So they're useful. Like in the moment, they're very attractive to like have that cup of coffee or the 10th cup of coffee or whatever it is.
There's a study that came out, I'm sure years ago now, and I think it was actually through the military. They were doing this, where they've discovered that it's actually the food that you eat, the amount of food that interrupts or helps along your circadian rhythm. Yeah. So I think the recommended amount is fasting for 18 hours before your first meal at your destination. And if you can do that, then it kind of kicks in your circadian rhythm. I can't fast for that long. I know that women and men just have different tolerances in terms of that. It's really difficult for me. But when I do eat much lighter when I'm traveling, makes the world a difference.
Yep.
Just completely changes it.
And maybe, I'm sure your listeners will be happy to fact check this for both of us, but I think that when I first started at Argonne, there was a big deal about the Argonne jet lag diet, and I think that diet was actually developed at our national laboratory.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, there was like
probably it's probably what I heard.
Yeah, and it's because it is like feast fast, and then on the day of travel you fast, and then when you get wherever you're going, you're supposed to eat a lot of protein in the morning and then just go on with your day. So yes,
I'll look it up. Yeah, I'll look it up, and if I can find it, then I'll link it in the show notes. Then.
And also, I'm a huge proponent of not napping wherever it is that you go. That's my other, for people who ask me for advice. I'm just like, whatever you can do, just don't fall asleep, and you're going to feel terrible. Just know that you will feel terrible for 20 minutes and it'll be horrible, and you'll want to like fall out of your chair and die, and just like stand up, fight it, like deal with your body whenever for that moment, and then you'll be okay. And then,
it is really difficult fighting that. I find that when I go to a destination, I'm okay. And I think it's because I'm so excited.
Oh, yeah.
And then when I come home, that's when it hits me most. Yeah. Then I have a harder time kind of getting back into the rhythm. But I just think it's the excitement of landing at my destination that my body just kind of takes over, and I don't need as much sleep. But definitely on the way home
Well, my team will tell you that I'm the queen of arriving from an international trip and grabbing all of our bags and then doing a show for the next day and doing Nuu Muu things and just sort of like very quick transitions. So the other option is to just pack your schedule so incredibly full that you don't have the option to be jet lagged, and that sometimes helps too.
Well, the problem with having your own business like me is that I have flexible time, and I'll have people on my tours and they'll say, "Yeah, we get back Sunday night, and then I have to go to work on Monday morning," and I think, "Oh my gosh, like how could you possibly do that?" But maybe that's the way to do it when you can't fall asleep at your desk. Me, I can just patter down the hall and go take a nap, and not a big deal. Working from home works out. Is there anything that you want to cover? Anything you'd like to chat about or talk about in terms of Nuu Muu?
Yeah, I guess one thing that we haven't touched on yet, which is just really near and dear to my heart, is our online community.
Oh, please.
And just how fantastic our customers/friends are on social media with each other. And that has just been a huge gift to Nuu Muu, and to the, like, when I'm annoyed at whatever it is that's going on with Nuu Muu, I can just go to our Facebook page, and not the sort of, we have a business page that we curate and post things on, and Nikki does an amazing job with that, and I actually get inspiration from that all the time as well, because she will find fantastic things. She has a great voice and a great vision for Nuu Muu and what we're about, and she's really good at pulling things that represent the company and sort of sharing them in addition to our own content, but just like having that be a space for inspiration for women either just being awesome or being awesome with respect to exercise. So sort of both those things. But then the other thing that we have is a closed group, which we call Team Nuu Muu, and our teamies on Team Nuu Muu, and they are amazing. And they are just so much fun. And
what
so
are they posting?
They post everything. They post stories about their day. They post their outfits. They post, them doing their 50th half marathon of the year, or their running goal where they wanted to run 4,000 miles this year and they're 300 short and they've only got a few more days, and so we're supposed to encourage them. Or there are stories of people overcoming health challenges, and very personal stories of like, oh, here's me in the hospital, radiation one more time and it's not working, but I'm wearing my dress, and like, wish me luck, girls. And then there's just like this outpouring of love, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And then like funny things of moms matching daughters and embarrassing them on purpose in their Nuu Moos, like doing whatever it is. And we had one really outrageous story, which I guess I'll share, of this woman, and she posts about the fact that she had just been in a car accident and she was in the ambulance and they were about to cut off her clothes, and she had a Nuu Muu on, and it was a Nuu Muu that was from 5 years ago, and there was no way she was ever going to replace it. And she was like, I don't care what happens right now, but you are not cutting through my Nuu Muu.
I love it.
It was just super funny. And so
she saved her Nuu Muu.
She saved her Nuu Muu. And there's a really, we have a strong third market for our dresses too. We have a buy-sell trade place where people, because we have seasons and we have collections that come out, and once they're gone, because we're a small company, and it's just part of the fun for us. It's like, okay, we have 500 dresses that look like this, and when they're gone, they're gone. But then people want that one, and so they will trade or post on eBay, or, oh, I found this here, and oh, I found that one there, and does anybody have this, or oh, I got smaller, and oh, I got bigger, and if I buy these 2 new ones, can I swap with this one? And so we have like third party trades going on in this group, because
in the group, okay,
it's so fun. It's so fun. So they're helping each other find whatever it is that they need.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
I have a Facebook group, a Be Bold Facebook group,
and
it's very similar to that, where we've got probably 2,300 women or so in it, and it's the same kind of sharing. It's everything from, I'm going off on my first solo trip to Paris, to I just asked for a raise for the first time, and I was petrified doing it. And it's really neat to see that kind of community and support from people. It's really great. And I know that people share things in there, and it's probably the same for you. It's an all women's group. Right. And so I know that things are being shared that aren't being shared otherwise, like on their personal pages. Right. So it's a really neat thing.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's a huge part of our company. And it's a huge part of the inspiration for me personally, of like, when the dresses, like we just got the last batch of dresses and they were running a little small, and I knew like for some people they're going to be super sad, and I'm going to deal with sad customers. And then some people, they're going to be like, oh, these ones fit me better than any. And so, anyway, I can go there and resource, for our company of like, what do you, we get a lot of feedback from them. So there's a dialogue. And also just, it highlights what Nuu Muu brings to the world, and that spirit that is around the company and around the product and around the people who work in Nuu Muu and the people who wear the dresses. Like there's instant sisterhood or instant connection of, running races and finding each other. Or I have a fun story of my daughter doing the Bloomsday run over in Spokane. And it was like we trained and she was ready. And of course we did the trade show beforehand. So, there's Nuu Moos out there on the course, and she would be running and she was like tired, right? And she'd be like, oh God, this is sort of hard. And we keep going like, you're doing great. Let's keep going. And then she would see a Nuu Moo somewhere and like sprint to that person. And she had all the energy in the world to sprint to that person and give them a high five. And then, oh, this is really hard. This is really hard, until she found the next Nuu Moo.
Well, that's like being full until the dessert menu comes.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, oh yeah. Oh, well, ice cream, that just like slips right down. Yeah, it's the same thing. Oh, so speaking of kind of that positive energy, you guys also do a 1% give back program, right? Or I'm sorry if I don't have the language right there, but could you explain what that is?
Yeah, we're members of 1% for the Planet. And 1% for the Planet is a membership organization of companies who pledge to give 1% of sales to organizations that they have vetted. So they have a list of who we're allowed to give money to, which is, it's a huge list, in order to protect support the places that we care about. So for Nuu Muu, we asked our community, where do you want us to give this money back to? And sometimes we look internally, but mostly it's protecting places where we want to recreate or where we care about the beings in those places. So wildlife work. Yeah, there's a list of organizations that we've donated to on our website. But 1% for the Planet is a great organization. It's a really interesting tool.
As we wrap up here, and I want to check that out for myself too, because I think it sounds fascinating.
And the Conservation Alliance, I think is also a good one.
As we just wrap up here, I'm just thinking, because I know that you're juggling so many things. What's a typical day in Bellingham look like for you?
Yeah.
So when you're not traveling, what does it look like?
Yeah, I would say that I need to be at my desk around 8 and need to walk my dog before that. So get up, have my coffee.
You work from home?
I do work from
lovely.
home. Yeah. So I've got a beautiful office that my husband has created into a little greenhouse. It's Ashley's greenhouse. So I can get as much sun as possible being my Californian self in Bellingham.
Your office?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
I'm working on my own greenhouse here too.
Yeah.
I've got sprouts going. I've got my little starts, my little bamboo starts, and I had a mushroom, this mushroom thing growing a while ago too.
It helps. I think fresh air and sunlight and beauty help you be your best self, at least for me. So I need to get to my desk and then I plow through my Argonne work, which takes up the vast majority of my day. I usually try to finish at 4 or 5, depending on what kind of craziness is going on. And then I will go to yoga and probably have a couple calls with Nuu Muu girls if there's things that need my attention.
And I know the majority of your waking hours are spent with your Argonne work, but you're also probably downplaying the influence that you have with Nuu Muu. So you're a co-owner.
Yeah.
But you also have an influence over what's going on. Like you said, you've got a great team there that you can delegate to, but they probably come to you for ideas and questions and
so I manage all the strategy and the finance piece, and so that I'm pretty heavily involved in operations, like at least the financial operations, sort of making sure that we understand, is the business healthy from a financial point of view. So I spend time there. There's a lot of there's time spent on that, and then there's HR work and connecting with customers. So I do shows or show up at our Girls on the Run is a lovely partner for us, and there's a whole lot of events that go on in Bellingham of which we are a part. So they're gonna Recreation Northwest as a summit and talking getting manufacturing companies who care about manufacturing in the recreation space. And so we'll bring those people together, and I might be on a panel or help to do some organizing around that. We've worked a lot with World Bicycle Relief is a really amazing organization, and my husband and I went to Zambia sort of on behalf of Nuu Muu, representing Nuu Muu, to talk about bicycles and their impact on people's lives. So that stuff I wouldn't say is my day to day, but it's the moments, the moments that I take out of my sort of quote unquote regular life to make sure that I'm focusing on Nuu Muu and doing things that connect me with our customers and our mission.
And how often are you getting out for bike rides?
Tuesday night bike rides.
Tuesday
night bike rides in the summer. That's the goal. Yeah.
Is that mountain biking or are you road biking?
I do road biking. But there are lots of bicycles. So I have a townie bike. I have a Schwinn 1960s bike with tassels on the
fun.
And that I ride around town, and it weighs about 200 pounds, which is my really good training bike for when I get on my road bike, and then all of a sudden that feels real easy. So and then touring when we can. This year was actually a drought year. It's a drought year.
Do you have? You mentioned your daughter. Do you have other kids?
Nope,
just the daughter. Yeah. Does she bike too?
She does. She's a good walker. She's a good millennial, so she doesn't have a car and doesn't have a driver's license, and gets out. She thinks nothing twice about walking 10 miles a day to get where she needs to go, but she's also takes the bus and bikes when she has to.
Good to hear.
Bellingham's an easy place to get around.
It is. Oh my gosh, it's a beautiful little town. I do enjoy Bellingham. This is the Be Bold podcast. What does Be Bold mean to you?
I think it means no fear. It means have courage. It means do the things that you want to do in the world, because you only get one shot. So
You do, unfortunately.
yeah, have at it. Or maybe not. In some religions, you get a lot of shots, so who knows?
Yeah. But you still have to make the best of it to ensure the next shot. And where can people find you or find Nuu Muu?
Yeah, so people buy dresses on our website every day, all day at www.nuumuu.com, and again that's
with the hyphen
NUU-MUU.com. And so we have a newsletter there where we connect people, we share stories about what's going on in our community or what we're up to or where we're going to be next. So that's easy. And then also our Facebook page is great. So we have two of those. So there's the public facing business page, and then if you really want to know what Nuu Muu is all about, you got to join Team Nuu Muu and just watch the show. Yeah, it's a good one.
Is that the one, the closed group you were talking about?
Yeah.
It's great. But we should buy a Nuu Muu first and then join the group.
Well, I would say not necessarily. If you need some inspiration or if you're not sure, I
appreciate that. But no, I'm trying to encourage people to
I tell people it takes like an extra moment of chutzpah to realize that you are going to exercise in a dress, because I think for a lot of people they're like, really, like, this is a pretty nice dress, like, are you sure that I should go for a run in it? And so I like some people just need to see it in action, or to like visually like, oh, people are kayaking, or people are using it as a swimsuit cover up, or travel. Like, we didn't really even talk about what an amazing travel piece it is. So we have people like just take they're going to go to Mexico for a week, and they just take their 5 Nuu Muus or their 6 Nuu Muus, and then they send us pictures of them drying on the clothesline or in the tree or whatever it is, and because they dry in an instant and they're super easy. So if you need visuals,
well, you know what, I might check that out, because I've been thinking I leave for India in just over a week. Yeah. But the problem is, in India, you have to be really careful. You can't bare your shoulders.
Right.
You can't bare your knees. But that's what leggings are for. And that's, I could put something underneath. You don't have anything with sleeves, do you?
We do. We have shirts. Yeah, that go with the dresses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
because that might be a good thing. Because the prints are so beautiful.
Yeah.
They're not, I won't say that they're Indian, but Indian fabrics are very colorful. And so it would fit in really well if I did something like that.
Yeah. And if you have a shrug or a sweater, or, for those of us in the Pacific Northwest, a fleece or whatever it is, they're somehow modest as well. Like, that's another thing another aspect of the garment that we get feedback on, because they are, the classic cut with the keyhole is high around the neck, so you don't feel exposed at all, and they cover your booty, which is really handy in places where it's not acceptable to run around in Lululemon tights.
Right.
So, people find them useful in that respect. And
they'll pack down small,
tiny.
Pop it open, and you don't have to iron it.
No.
So it's great for travel.
Yeah. And you can wash it in the sink and hang it up, and it's drying in 20 minutes.
I'm sold.
Yeah. Handy.
And you, in addition to your website, I can find them in retail outlets also.
Yeah. So we've got a store locator function on our website if you want to see if there's a retailer near you. And I should also tell all the people listening that if you find the perfect store to carry Nuu Muu, you get a free dress.
No kidding.
Because that's word of mouth is really how we've grown our retail chain. And I would say, it needs to be a store that caters to women, and it needs to be a store that has women on the floor, and it needs to have a place where people feel comfortable trying things on, and where there's adventure and fun, because that's where, sometimes it's a gift shop, or a boutique, but sort of outdoor stores that are more boy focused, not so great, but outdoor stores where, like, the quintessential sort of outdoor divas in Colorado, like stores where you're really focused on women's products, we do great there. So
I know a place, but I'm not going to say it while we're recording, because I don't want somebody else to call in while I'm busy here at my desk working. So, Ashley, thanks so much for coming to Seattle today. I appreciate it. I know you were in town for business, and I do plan a trip up to Bellingham, so I want to come and meet the other Nuu Muu ladies.
See headquarters.
Yeah, I want to see headquarters.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So thanks again for coming and all your time too.
Thank you. We are honored to be part of your awesome journey. So thank you.
Thanks.
Re-listening to this episode myself, I'm still not sure how she manages to juggle all that she does. I did follow up with Ashley via email and asked her for insight into delegating. And this is what she said. I think delegating is about truly letting a project get bigger than yourself and/or what you can do by yourself. So there's a lot of being willing to get bigger than yourself, and being willing to let go of control, and accept the inevitable hiccups that come when you don't get to touch every single piece of a project. Isn't that great advice? A reminder that if you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play and leave a review. Those reviews really do help the podcast get more exposure and will ultimately help us grow our Be Bold community. I bet you know a few people in your world who would also enjoy today's episode and this podcast in general, so please do share. Podcasts are a new thing for some people, so if you've got a friend who doesn't know how to download them, take a moment to give them a lesson. You can find out more about me by visiting wanderlustandlipstick.com. You'll find show notes and all of my podcast episodes on beboldpodcast.com. You and your Nuu Muu can join me on a tour to many international destinations, including India, Tanzania, Papua New Guinea, or a culinary tour to Santa Fe, New Orleans, or Seattle. You'll find all of those on wandertours.com. If you'd like to connect with me, you can friend me on Facebook, and I'm WanderGal on Instagram. Sign up for my newsletter on the Wanderlust and Lipstick site, and you'll receive a series of tips for making your travels safer. I've also started sending out Wanderlist, a monthly roundup of my favorite gear, music, podcast episodes, and other items that I've discovered and want to share. You generally won't find these on my social media channels, so that newsletter is a special place for that info. If you know of any high-performing, adventurous, philanthropic, musical women whom you think might be a good guest, shoot me a note or leave a comment. And finally, the ladies can join us on our Be Bold Facebook group. That's where you'll find our growing community. It's where we share goals, talk about our setbacks, and where you can find words of encouragement and inspiration from others. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Be Bold podcast. Until next time, be bold.